Hi guys, welcome back to the new edition of this particular YouTube channel, Analyze with Adeayo. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys the two strategy of tennis total games and the first set total games. So these two markets happens to be the two easiest market to predict. Tennis is very easy to predict, but it can be tricky. Yes, because in tennis there are some rules and there are some events that can happen that can actually affect your predictions or the outcomes of your game negatively. So I'm going to explain everything in this video, and I'm going to show you guys the step by step on how you too can also be predicting your own total games in tennis and the first set total games in tennis. Alright, so when it comes to tennis, I've been doing it for years, and I know sometimes you need to take a break because it can frustrate you sometimes. But there are some steps that you guys can actually take to effectively make use of these particular strategies. When it comes to tennis, there are some things. First, let me discuss about the first set predictions. When it comes to tennis, there are some things that are very, very, very common. Tennis happens to be a game that is very easy to predict. It will be very easy for you to predict tennis because, first, when you are predicting the first set, for a player to win a set, the player must acquire 6 points. Are you getting it? So in any market, in the market for predicting the first set across all bookies, you will never see anything like over 5.5 first set, because that is automatic win. The only thing that you can actually see is over 6.5. That is, if you are predicting over 6.5, that means at least if one player is winning, the other player must have at least 1 point in the first set. Most times in tennis we always have 3 sets, no, 2 sets. This is 1 2. They only play 2 sets, but sometimes in other tournaments we can have up to like 3 sets. So let's assume that this guy played, as this guy won the first set. Let's assume that as this guy won the first set, this guy also won the second set. That is 1-1. So they have to go to the third set. So when it comes to predicting total games in tennis, let us leave the first aspect, which is first set, because that is very, very simple. So if you are going for over 6.5 first sets, just know that so far one player is automatically winning. That means you are predicting that at least the other player that will lose the first set will score 1 point. That is 6-1. But in tennis, the common thing that used to happen is over 7.5 first set. You will surely see their first set ending up as 6-2 or 6-3 or 6-4 or 6-5 or 7-5 or 7-6, like that. So if you guys check very well, most times you always have 6-3, 6-4, 7-5, 6-2. Are you getting it? Just like this, 6-2. So commonly it is over 7.5 that we always have when it comes to predicting tennis first set. But most of these particular bookies, they are wise. So if they are going to attribute, maybe allocate odds to this market, they will allocate a very ridiculous odd for the over 7.5, like 1.04 or 1.05. But when you are taking a little bit risk of going for over 8.5 first set, then that is when you are going to be having maybe like 1.14 odd or 1.2 odd. So for example, if you guys look at this particular game, they said over 6.5 first set is a 1.01 odd. Naturally, there is high chance that this particular games will end up as over 6.5. That is, if at all player A or player B is winning, that means the opponent will surely have 1 point in the first set, and in the second, for the over 7.5, you are getting probably 1.10, 1.04, 1.05. But most times when you are taking risk, the highest risk that you can take when it comes to predicting first set total point is over 7.5, over 8.5. And I'm so surprised that they are allocating 1.33 odd for the over 8.5 first set of this particular game. The one we predicted yesterday, The highest odd we were able to get is just I think 1.23 odd, 1.23 odd. So when it comes to predicting four sets, it is very simple. Now let us move into the steps of predicting the first set, tennis total points, and the tennis total games. All right, so when I was posting this particular tips predictions on Telegram, I mentioned it that this particular strategy is based on four steps tennis model. Yes, because there are four things that I look into before predicting those games, as you know, first set over 8.5, and the total games are probably over 18 or over 9. Because when it comes to predicting tennis total points, what you are going to be getting mostly from bookies is around over 20 and over 21 generally. That is why I told you that tennis is very easy to predict, because let's assume that in the first set the two players played maybe 6-3, and in the second set the two players played 6-4. If we add both together, that is 19. So the common save or number line that you can go for in tennis is somewhere around 17 or 18 most times. That is another tips for you guys. Most times. So let's assume that you want to play this particular game. So the first set, the bookmakers allocate over 6.5 1.01 odd, over 7.5 1.04 odd. The games I showed you guys earlier, I think maybe that is probably for girls, the female, because those ones they don't really score points very well like that. So you guys can see over 7.5 odd is 1.04 odd. And if you guys move downward to the total games, what you will see mostly is over 20.5 or over 21. You see, let me tell you something, this is very tricky. If you are going for over 20, that means you are predicting that at least in the first set or in the second set, these two teams they must play maybe 7-5 or maybe 6-4. Let's assume that they play 6-3 in the first set. Just like this, maybe they played 6-3 in the first set and they play 6-4 in the second set. That is approximately 19 total games, right? If you go for over 20 here, you lost your game. And if you go on to risk it and predict under, this guy might shock you that it will just, maybe after losing the first set they will just draw, the other guy will just win the second set and they will play draw, and the next thing they are going to the third set, and then your other prediction is lost. So that's why I say that in tennis it can be very tricky when you know when you have your accurate calculation, because there are some figures that are very technical in tennis that you need to calculate. It is very simple, but you need to understand the technical aspect of it. So I will only advise you guys to always go for the over point when it comes to tennis. Now we have the four steps, and the first number one step happens to be calculating the average total games in the last previous games, and number two step happens to be checking the first set score trends, and number three, which happens to be the step three, is checking the service game strength, that is their first serve strength percentage, and also lastly checking their head-to-head total games. But when it comes to this particular head-to-head total games, it is that is only if you have it, because sometimes there are some players that are meeting for the first time. Alright, so now let's start. This is how I'm going to predict two different markets at the same time using the same fixtures, because if you guys check the previous predictions, you guys will notice that all these particular three games, they are the same thing as the one I predicted for the first set total game. So let's go. So at the end of this particular strategy, I will give you guys hints about how you can caution yourself when it comes to predicting tennis, because there are a lot of risk when it comes to tennis. It is very simple to predict, very very simple, but there are a lot of risk attached to it. So I'm going to explain that to you after the steps explained. Now the first thing that we want to do now is to calculate the total games, the average total games in the last previous games for for player A and player B. Now the first thing that we want to do is that we need to check the last 5 games of Opeka, this guy. So let us check the last 5 games and see the total games, like the total point that there is games in the last 5 games ended up with. Now let's see. in this particular match. So in the first set seems to be a very tough match in this game. So they had 7 and 6, you know. So I want you guys to be jotting out the point that I'm going to explain, because if you miss it, kindly just make sure that you ask your question in the comment section. If you are not getting a particular point, if you are missing some facts or details, just make sure that you don't skip any part of this particular video. So we are going to add up all these particular points together, and let's see what we have. So make sure you are jotting these particular points down, please. Kindly make sure you are doing so. So 7 and 6, and in the second set they had 6 and 4, and that is 23. Okay, so we have 23 for the last game this guy played. So let us document that. So we are documenting that. So let us check this. So he had 7-5 here and 6-7 here, and adding up all these particular figures, we are getting 25 for this particular game. So let us check the third match. Alright, so in this particular game, in the first set they had 7-6, and second set 6-3. So in total this particular game ended up in 22. Alright, so let us check the fourth game. Alright, so the first set of this particular game ended up in 7-6, extended to second set 7-6 again, and extended into the third set because they ended up playing draw. Like the first set and the second set they played draw. So in order to determine the winner, they had to go to the third set. So the total point for this particular game alone is 35. So that's why I said predicting under total games in tennis can be tricky sometimes. You may not be able to escape it. So we have 35 for this particular game. For this. So, and the last one. So in the first set we have 7-6 and 7-5. So the total point happens to be 25. So what you just need to do is to add up all these particular points that we've been able to document, all of it together. So now after adding everything together, we are getting 130. Now divide 130 by 5, we are getting 26. So the average total games for the player A, which happens to be Opeka, happens to be 26. So 26 is our average total game for Opeka. So we are going for the other guy too. Alright, now so before I proceed on the other guy, you guys are going to see something like retired here. I'm going to explain it for you. This happens to be one of the risks that I was planning to explain to you at the end of this particular video, but I'm going to do it now, because when you are seeing something like this, that shows that one of this particular player decided not to continue with the game, maybe probably because of injuries or medical issues like that, or maybe the player just decided that, okay, I can't meet up with this guy anymore, I'm tired, I'm no more playing a game. It happens like that. So I'm going to show you now. Click on this particular game. You guys can see that this is like a let me just put it like a free point, because probably maybe you guys can see the first set ended up in 6-4. They played the first set, and the second set the home guy was winning 3-1, maybe probably as a result of health issue, or this guy decided not to play again, and that is automatic winning, which is 1 for the other player. Even if it is this guy that was winning before, maybe he has won the first set and is currently winning the second set, and said, okay, maybe because of medical issue or stuff, or maybe mutual agreement that he is no more playing a game, then there will be an automatic 1 point winning for the other player. So that is what is happening here. So with that, we are still going to calculate the total games that we have inside this particular game, because since we are going for the over and we have something like this incomplete total game point, it is like an advantage for us to go below the expected total games outcome. At least it will make us to be on the safe side. So we are getting the total games for the other player. So we have 6-4 and 3-1, which accumulates to 14. So the risk about it is that let's assume that you predicted the game as probably maybe over 20, and one of the players decided to retire. That is 14 points. Now it depends on the bookmakers that you are using for your games, because there are some bookmakers that so far they are unable to finish this, they will just assume it as void. But if one player just retired at the middle of the game and the game did not exceed the line or the figures that you predict to be over, maybe you predicted over 20 and they played 14, there are some bookies that will assume it as lost. So you need to understand your bookies very well before making use of them. All right, so now we have 14 for the other guy. And for this particular game that ended up in 2-0, let's check the total games that we have there. Alright, so we have 6-4, 6-4, and that is 20. That's why I say that sometimes predicting over 20 can be risky, because you just be getting exactly what you predict, because that's what bookies will give you. They will give you 20 or 21, and at the end of the day, the common result you are getting is 6-3 in the first set, or 6-4 in the first set, and maybe 6-4 in the second set. So we have 20 for this particular game. So for this, so we have 6-4 in the first set, and we have 6-2 in the second set, which is 18. So for the fourth game, we have 6-3 in the first set and 7-5 in the second, of which accumulates to 21. So we have it as 21. So the last game, we have 6-4 in the first set and 7-3 in the second set, and this accumulates to 23. So we are going to add everything together and divide by 5 to get the average total games for the player B. Alright, so we have the total numbers of 96, and we are dividing it by 5, and we are getting 19.2. Actually 19.2 happens to be the average total point for player B. So we are going to add this particular total average point of player B with that of Opeka, which happens to be player A. So we have Opeka average total point at 26. So we have 45.2 divided by 2, and the average total game point that we have for this particular game is at 22.6. Now that we have 22.6 for this particular game, that doesn't mean that that is what we are going for, or that is what we will predict this particular game. That only gives us an insight of the average total point of this particular what we should be expecting. It can be over and it can be under it, but it will not be far to 22.6. It may be around maybe 18 or 17, or it can be the outcome of the game can end up in maybe over 20, over 21, but the average, something we should be expecting something around that particular figure of that 22. But what I always do is that from that average point that I get, I always subtract certain figures from it, and I predict my games like that. But another step which happens to be the step 3 of this particular strategy of predicting tennis is a service game strength. So this particular step 3, the strong servers are, they are harder to break. It is not very easy to win them like that, because if you guys check the games that I predicted yesterday, this particular game, they are very tough games. If you go and check their stats after watching these particular videos, go and check the stats, apply the same steps, apply it on them, and see what I'm talking about. These 3 games, go and check their previous stats before they ended up playing these games. In their first set alone, it was very, very tough. These 3 games alone. So when predicting the total game points or the first half, using the service game strength is also very, very important. So what do I mean by a service game strength? I'm going to show you guys, and you guys are going to apply the same strategy that we used to get the average, average total games of each of these particular player. So this is how you are going to get your service game strength. If you check the stats here, you go down here, you are going to see the first serve point won. This is the percentage that you need to look into. So for this guy here, in the last game that he played, he had 76%. So you are going to check it like that for the rest of the game. Check this one again. The first serve point won, that's 77%. You go with it, check it again. You are going to add all the last 5 service point won percentage all together. So he had 97 here, he had 97% here. So what we just need to make sure is that after getting everything in, we have to do to get the average service point percentage of each player. So now I believe you guys understand the process of getting the average point of the first serve strength, and secondly the total games average point. We have 22, and let's assume that I want to predict this particular game. I would prefer going for maybe over 18.5 for this particular game, at most over 18.5. So most of the bookies, they will not provide you the odd line for over 18.5. So what you just need to do is to look for it by yourself, like check across bookies. We have 1xbet, we have so many more like that, sportybets, betano, betninja, so many more like that. And people that are not from this particular country, maybe Williams Hills or bet365, 22bets, many bet platforms like that, you guys can actually check across the one that offers the odd line that meet up with your analysis. If they are not providing the figures that meet up with your analysis, try to avoid the game. It's better to have your money in your pocket than to lose it. Alright, so now moving on to the next aspect, that is the head to head. I told you guys that only if it is available, that is when this particular aspect is necessary. Are you getting it? So now let's assume that they've been playing at least maybe up to like 3 games at least together, maybe against each other. Maybe they had 3 games against each other, and you check the average total games of that 3 games and it is below or above. So you just go for just have to go for the one that has the smallest average total games and do your final subtraction and addition on it. So now when it comes to predicting the first set total points, this aspect happens to be very very simple because I've made a video on that already. So if you are using this particular bet platform, sportybet, there's one thing I like about how they provide the stats for us. They've already done the averaging stuffs like that and like that, the first set average stuff like that. So looking at this, we have the average games in the first set. In the first set, we have the average games in the first set, and for Opeka we have 6.8, and for the other guy we have 5.8. So what I do mostly to predict this particular first set total point is to be adding the average games in the first set. So we have 6.8 and 5.8, which is above 10. Anything above 10 in tennis, when it comes to average points, I always go for it as over 7.5. That is if I want to play safe. And the only problem that you can face when it comes to predicting the first set over 7.5 is that the odd that the bookmakers will allocate to it will be very very small. For example, I told you guys earlier, games that has, we have some games that they always have this high chance of coming out so well as over 7.5. The bookies will make the odd to be very very extremely small like this. So most times if I want to take the risk, I always go for over 8.5, just like I did yesterday. So if you are going for over 7.5, I like it. Sometimes I love it for predicting maybe rollover stuff like that. But the odd, if you don't like small odd, you won't like this particular over 7.5 over 10. But it happens to be what used to occur very well in tennis first set. You will surely see over 7.5. It is very rare. At least 90% of most of the tennis games played in a day always end up as over 7.5 first set, unless the strength of the two players are not equal. We always have some games, some fixtures that player A will be stronger, extremely stronger than player B. So in that kind of a situation, that is when you can have the outcome ending up as under 6.5 or under 7.5. So predicting this particular game, it may be very hard for you to get over 18.5 or over 19.5, because the bookies, they too, they are doing business, and they are not willing to give out their money to you like that. They are willing to collect your own money. So that's why they are always trying to advertise their platforms to us. And if you do your analysis and you were unable to get the accurate online that meet up with it, just try to avoid the game or look for other bookies that are providing the odd and the line that meet up with your analysis. And if you lose it, then you accept it as okay, that's how it is, because sometimes when it comes to sports predictions, you cannot always predict the outcome. All right, now, so for the games played yesterday, we experienced a retired event, but the game played for the first half over 8, and they decided to stop the second half. So we predicted this. So first half over 8.5, and total games over 18.5. And fortunately, before they retired, they exceeded that particular 18.5 total games. But what I'm here to understand about that particular bet platform is that I don't know if if the total game did not meet up with what you predicted before they retired. I don't know if the game is expected to be void or not, but I know of that of Sportybet that any games that is interrupted before reaching the total games that you predict, I think Sportybet used to void it. All right, so thanks for watching. If you have any question regarding to this particular strategy, please kindly drop it in the comment section. Like our video, subscribe if you are just joining this particular channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.